She begged the Alpha King to kill her. The mate bond. Chose her instead. Kathleen Mills ran because staying hurt worse than leaving. She didn't pack a bag, didn't write a letter, didn't say goodbye to her sister Leah, who would have tried to stop her with soft words and sadder eyes. Kathleen just walked out of the settlement on the night before the Lunar Assembly, when every wolf in the territory was supposed to be preparing for the gathering, and she kept walking until the lights behind her faded to nothing. The forbidden forest rose ahead like a wall of shadows. Everyone knew the stories. Children were told never to enter. Adults spoke of it in whispers. The forest had claimed wolves before, swallowed them whole, returned them changed, or didn't return them at all. Old magic lived there. The kind that didn't care about pack law or bloodlines or reason. Kathleen walked straight toward it. Her feet crunched over fallen branches. The air grew colder the deeper she went. Moonlight filtered through the canopy in thin silver threads, just enough to see by, not enough to feel safe. She could hear her own breathing, sharp and unsteady, and the distant sounds of the forest settling around her. She found a clearing where the trees pulled back just enough to let the moon through. Kathleen sat down on the mossy ground and pulled her knees to her chest. "I'm sorry," she whispered to the darkness. "I know I don't belong here either." Her voice cracked on the last word. She had lived 23 years as the girl who couldn't shift. The wolf who wasn't quite a wolf. The daughter the pack pitied, and the sister people felt sorry for. Leah had tried to shield her from the worst of it, but Kathleen heard the whispers anyway. She saw the way council members like Isaac Finch and Marmon Doolin looked at her, like a problem they hadn't solved yet, like a mistake they didn't know how to fix. Tomorrow, at the Lunar Assembly, she would have stood in front of every pack in the region. She would have felt their eyes on her, heard their silence when her name was called, and no wolf answered from within. She couldn't do it again, so she had chosen this instead. The forest, the unknown. Anything but another room full of wolves pretending not to notice her shame. Kathleen lay down on the ground, curling onto her side. The earth was cold beneath her cheek. Above, the stars watched without judgment. She closed her eyes. Sleep came slowly, pulled her under in stages, and she didn't notice when her breathing evened out or when the forest around her went quiet. She didn't notice the figure standing at the edge of the clearing. Wyatt Richmond had been there for 3 nights already. The Alpha King stood in the shadows between 2 ancient oaks, watching the girl who didn't know she was being watched. His wolf was restless beneath his skin, pacing, clawing, demanding he go to her. The mate bond burned in his chest like a second heartbeat, tight, undeniable, unreturned. She didn't feel it yet. She didn't know. Wyatt had known the moment he'd seen her, weeks ago, at a border negotiation her pack had hosted. She'd been serving refreshments, trying to be invisible, and the bond had snapped into place so hard it nearly drove him to his knees. He'd covered the reaction, finished the meeting, left without saying a word. And then he'd started watching. Not out of obsession, not out of control, but because the bond showed him things. Whispers of danger, flashes of violence aimed at her. A certainty that something was coming, and when it did, she would be alone. So he'd come to the forest. He'd tracked her scent. He'd stayed close enough to protect her and far enough away that she wouldn't know. He'd already killed for her. 2 rogues, 3 nights ago. They'd been moving through the trees with purpose, heading straight for her sleeping form. Wyatt had ended them silently, dragged the bodies deep into the forest where the scavengers would take care of the evidence, and returned to his watch. She'd never woken. Now, standing in the darkness, Wyatt studied her, the way the moonlight caught in her dark hair. The way her hands curled beneath her chin like a child seeking comfort. The way the forest seemed to bend toward her, just slightly, as if recognizing something it hadn't seen in a long time. He noticed things she didn't. The way the moss glowed faintly where her fingers rested. The way the wind moved around her instead of over her. The way small animals approached without fear, drawn to something they sensed but couldn't name. Old magic. She didn't know what she was. Her pack didn't know, but Wyatt did. Or at least, he suspected. And that made her dangerous. Not to him. Never to him. But to people who feared power they couldn't control. To wolves who built their authority on keeping others weak. To rogues who served masters that wanted her found. Wyatt's jaw tightened. He would not let them have her. The bond pulled at him, insistent. His wolf demanded he go to her, wake her, claim her, make her understand she wasn't alone. But Wyatt knew better. Knowledge would crush her right now. She was already drowning in shame. Adding the weight of a mate bond, especially one tied to the Alpha King, would break her completely. So he stayed in the shadows. He would be her shield, even if she never knew his name. A sound cut through the silence. Wyatt's head snapped toward the northern edge of the clearing. His wolf surged forward, senses sharpening. He could smell them before he saw them. 3 rogues, moving fast, coordinated. Not random wanderers. Hunters. They were coming for her. Wyatt moved without sound, slipping through the trees like smoke. He positioned himself between the rogues and Kathleen's sleeping form, his body coiled and ready. The bond screamed at him to protect. And for once, he didn't fight it. The first rogue broke through the tree line. Wyatt met him in silence. The fight was over in seconds. Wyatt didn't shift, didn't need to. He was faster, stronger, and far more motivated. The first rogue went down with a crushed windpipe. The second tried to run and made it 5 steps before Wyatt's hand closed around the back of his neck. The third was smarter. He turned and fled, crashing through the underbrush like a frightened deer. Wyatt let him go. He returned to the clearing, breathing steady, his hands clean. Kathleen hadn't moved. She was still curled on her side, lost in whatever dreams held her. Wyatt crouched at the edge of the tree line, watching. The bond hummed between them, a connection she couldn't feel and he couldn't sever. "Sleep, little wolf," he murmured, too quiet for her to hear. "I'm not going anywhere." The forest settled around them, and Wyatt Richmond, Alpha King of the largest territory in the region, kept watch over the girl who thought she was nobody. Dawn came slowly to the forbidden forest. Wyatt watched the light filter through the canopy, turning the shadows from black to gray to gold. He hadn't moved from his position, hadn't slept, didn't need to. His wolf was too wired, too focused on the sleeping figure in the clearing to allow for rest. Kathleen stirred as the sun touched her face. She sat up slowly, blinking against the light, and for a moment she looked confused, like she'd forgotten where she was, or why she'd come here. Then memory returned, and her expression crumpled before she forced it smooth again. Wyatt's chest tightened. She stood brushing moss from her clothes, and turned in a slow circle. Her gaze swept over the clearing, pausing on the disturbed ground where Wyatt had fought the rogues. Her brow furrowed. She took a step closer, crouched down, touched the torn earth with careful fingers. Wyatt held completely still. Kathleen straightened, her head tilting as if listening to something only she could hear. Then she shook herself, wrapped her arms around her middle, and started walking back the way she'd come. Wyatt followed. He kept his distance, moving through the trees like a ghost. She never looked back, never sensed him. The bond allowed him to track her effortlessly, a golden thread connecting them across space and silence. As he walked, Memories rose unbidden. He'd made inquiries about her after that first meeting. Discreet questions, careful research. What he'd learned had made his wolf snarl with protective rage. Kathleen Mills, youngest daughter of a mid-ranking family in the Voss pack. Sister to Leah Mills, who'd married well and tried to shield her younger sibling from scrutiny. Kathleen had never shifted, never felt her wolf. The pack healers had examined her at 16 and found nothing physically wrong, which somehow made it worse. If there was no medical reason, then the failure must be personal, spiritual, a reflection of weakness. The council had debated what to do with her. Rufus Voss, the pack alpha, had argued for patience. Marmon Doolin and Isaac Finch had suggested she be sent away. Gently, of course, to avoid embarrassment. Harlan Cross had proposed she be assigned menial work to earn her keep. In the end, they'd done nothing. Just let her exist in a state of permanent limbo. Not quite pack, not quite outcast. A girl suspended between belonging and abandonment. Leah had fought for her. Wyatt had found records of her appeals to the council, formal requests that her sister be given more time, more chances, more dignity. It hadn't changed anything. Kathleen had grown up watching other wolves shift for the first time, watching them find their mates, watching them claim their place in the pack structure. She'd grown up knowing she would never have those things. She'd learned to make herself small, quiet, forgettable, and she'd started to believe she deserved it. Wyatt's hands curled into fists. She thought she was cursed, broken, wrong. She'd spent years absorbing the pack's pity and doubt until it became the truth she told herself. She had no idea what she actually was. Wyatt had seen the signs the moment he'd started watching her. The way nature responded to her presence. The way animals gravitated toward her without fear. The way the forbidden forest, a place that rejected most wolves, had welcomed her like a daughter coming home. Old magic ran in her veins, the kind that predated packs and territories, and modern wolf society. The kind that didn't need shifting to be powerful. The kind that terrified people who built their authority on control. That was why the rogues were hunting her. That was why danger circled closer with every passing day. Someone knew what she was, even if she didn't. And they wanted her found before she awakened. Wyatt had no intention of letting that happen. Kathleen reached the edge of the forest just as the sun climbed higher. She paused at the tree line, staring out at the settlement beyond. Wyatt could see the tension in her shoulders, the way she braced herself like someone preparing to walk into battle. She took a breath and stepped into the light. Wyatt stayed in the shadows. He would follow her back, watch her from a distance, make sure she was safe until nightfall, when he could return to the forest and prepare for whatever came next. Because something was coming. The bond told him so. A certainty that settled deep in his bones, undeniable as gravity. The Lunar Assembly was tomorrow night. Kathleen would be there, surrounded by hundreds of wolves, exposed and vulnerable. The rogues would make their move then, when chaos provided cover, and no one would notice one unremarkable girl disappearing into the crowd. Wyatt would be there too. Not as a guest. Not as a visiting alpha making a political appearance, but as a shadow in the dark, a blade in the night, a king who had already decided what he would burn down to keep her safe. The mate bond pulled tight across his chest. Kathleen disappeared into the settlement, swallowed by the familiar streets and buildings of her pack's territory. Wyatt turned back toward the forest. He had preparations to make. Kathleen made it back to her small cottage just as the settlement began to stir. She slipped inside and closed the door, leaning against it with her eyes shut. Her heart was pounding. Not from exertion, from the weight of what she'd almost done, what she'd tried to do, and the confused, restless feeling that had followed her out of the forest. Something had been different in the clearing. She'd felt it when she woke. A warmth that didn't come from the sun. A presence that lingered even in absence. The torn earth where it looked like something violent had happened. And yet she'd slept through the night undisturbed. Someone had been there. Someone had protected her. Kathleen pressed her palms against her eyes and tried to make sense of it. Maybe she'd imagined the whole thing. Maybe exhaustion and despair had created phantoms in her mind. Maybe the forest had simply been the forest, and she was reading meaning into coincidence. But deep in her chest, something stirred. Her wolf. Faint. Barely there, but real. Kathleen's breath caught. She pressed a hand to her sternum, feeling for the presence she'd spent her entire life searching for. It flickered like a candle flame in wind. There one moment, gone the next. But it was something. More than she'd ever felt before. A knock on the door made her jump. "Kathleen? Are you in there?" Leah's voice, gentle and worried. Kathleen opened the door. Her sister stood on the threshold, still in her nightclothes, her hair loose around her shoulders. Leia's eyes scanned Kathleen's face, taking in the dirt on her clothes and the shadows under her eyes. "Where were you?" Leia stepped inside without waiting for an invitation, closing the door behind her. "I came by last night and you were gone. I've been worried sick. I needed air." Air. Leah's tone was flat. "You needed air the night before the Lunar Assembly? Kathleen, everyone is going to be looking for you today. The council, the pack, visitors from other territories. You can't just disappear." "Why not?" The words came out sharper than Kathleen intended. "It's not like anyone will miss me." Leah's expression softened into something that hurt worse than anger. Pity. Again. "Don't say that." "It's true." "It's not." Leah reached for her hand. "You're my sister. I would miss you. And you're part of this pack, whether the council acknowledges it properly or not. You belong here." Kathleen pulled her hand away. "I don't belong anywhere." Silence stretched between them. Finally, Leah sighed. "You have to attend the assembly tonight." "I know. The Alpha King is coming." Kathleen looked up sharply. "What?" "Wyatt Richmond." Leah's voice carried a note of awe. "He never comes to regional gatherings, but he sent word 3 days ago that he'll be attending this one. Everyone's talking about it. The council is scrambling to prepare." Something cold settled in Kathleen's stomach. "Why would he come here?" "No one knows, but it means tonight is going to be even more formal than usual. Every pack will be on their best behavior." Leah hesitated, "Including ours." Translation: "Don't embarrass us." Kathleen had heard that message her whole life, spoken and unspoken. Don't draw attention. Don't make a scene. Don't remind people that you're different. "I'll be there," Kathleen said quietly. Leah studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "Wear the blue dress, the one I gave you last year. And please, try to stay near me during the ceremony. I don't want you getting lost in the crowd." Translation: "I don't trust you not to run again." After Leah left, Kathleen sat on the edge of her bed and stared at the wall. The Alpha King was coming. She'd never seen him in person. Few wolves had. Wyatt Richmond ruled the largest territory in the region from a stronghold deep in the northern mountains. He was known for being ruthless in negotiations, strategic in alliances, and utterly uninterested in the social politics that consumed smaller packs. His presence at a lunar assembly was unprecedented. Kathleen's wolf stirred again, restless beneath her skin. She pressed her hand to her chest, trying to understand the feeling. It wasn't fear exactly. It was something else. Recognition, maybe. Or warning. The day passed in a haze of preparation. Kathleen bathed and dressed in the blue gown Leah had mentioned. It was simple but well made, the kind of thing that would let her blend into the background at a formal gathering. She braided her hair and pinned it up, leaving a few strands loose to soften her face. When she looked in the mirror, she saw exactly what she always saw. A girl pretending to be something she wasn't. Evening came too quickly. The Lunar Assembly was held in the Great Hall at the center of the settlement. By the time Kathleen arrived with Leah, the building was already filled with wolves from a dozen different packs. The air hummed with conversation and the subtle tension of hierarchies being negotiated. Kathleen stayed close to her sister, trying to make herself invisible. Across the room, she saw Isaac Finch speaking with Marmon Doolin, both of them dressed in formal council robes. Rufus Voss stood near the dais, greeting visiting alphas with practiced diplomacy. Everything looked normal, controlled, safe. Kathleen didn't feel safe. Her wolf was awake now, fully present for the first time in her life. It paced inside her chest, agitated and alert, like it was waiting for something. The hall went quiet. Kathleen looked up. Wyatt Richmond stood in the doorway. The Alpha King was taller than Kathleen expected. He moved through the hall like water, smooth and inevitable, and every wolf in the room felt the weight of his presence. Conversations died mid-sentence. Alphas who'd been posturing moments before straightened their spines and lowered their eyes. Wyatt Richmond commanded space without saying a word. He was dressed simply. Dark clothes, no ornament, nothing to announce his rank. He didn't need it. Authority radiated from him like heat from a fire. His features were sharp, carved from stone, and his eyes swept the room with the kind of focus that missed nothing. Kathleen felt her breath catch. Something inside her pulled tight, like a string being drawn to its breaking point. Her wolf surged forward. The sensation was so sudden, so overwhelming, that Kathleen gasped. Her hand flew to her chest. The bond she'd never felt, the connection she'd spent 23 years waiting for, snapped into place with brutal clarity. Mate. No. Kathleen's vision blurred. This wasn't possible. The Alpha King couldn't be her mate. She was nobody. She was broken. She was... Wyatt's eyes found hers across the room. The world stopped. His expression didn't change, but something flickered in his gaze. Recognition, confirmation, the same terrible knowledge that was currently tearing Kathleen apart from the inside. He knew. He'd known. Before Kathleen could process what that meant, the doors at the far end of the hall burst open. Rogues poured into the room. Not 3 or 4. Dozens. They moved with coordinated precision, cutting through the crowd like wolves who'd planned this attack down to the second. Screams erupted. Alphas shifted. The orderly gathering dissolved into chaos. And through it all, the rogues moved toward one target. Kathleen. She saw it happening like a scene from a nightmare. Wolves she didn't recognize pushing through the crowd, their eyes locked on her. She heard them calling a name. Not Kathleen, something older, something that made her blood run cold. Moira's daughter. Leah screamed. Someone grabbed Kathleen's arm. She yanked free, stumbling backward, and then a wall of muscle placed itself between her and the advancing rogues. Wyatt. He hadn't shifted, didn't need to. He stood in front of Kathleen with the casual confidence of a man who knew exactly how dangerous he was. And the rogues actually hesitated. "Stand down," Wyatt said. His voice was quiet, deadly. The lead rogue bared his teeth. "She belongs to us." "No." Wyatt's tone didn't change. "She doesn't." "You don't know what she is." "I know exactly what she is." Wyatt's hand moved to the blade at his hip. "And you're not taking her." The rogue lunged. Wyatt moved faster. The fight was brutal and efficient. Wyatt cut through the rogues like they were nothing, his movements controlled and precise. Other wolves joined the defense, pack alphas protecting their territory, council members scrambling to restore order, but Wyatt was the center of the storm. Kathleen watched, frozen, as the Alpha King fought for her, died for her, bled for her. A rogue broke through the line and came straight for Kathleen. She didn't think. Her body moved on instinct. She grabbed a broken chair leg from the ground and swung it with everything she had. The rogue went down. Kathleen stood over him, breathing hard, the makeshift weapon shaking in her hands. Wyatt appeared at her side. He had blood on his knuckles and a cut above his eyebrow, but his focus was entirely on her. "Are you hurt?" Kathleen shook her head. She couldn't form words. Around them, the fight was ending. The rogues were retreating, dragging their wounded with them, disappearing into the night as quickly as they'd come. The hall was in shambles, wolves were injured, furniture was destroyed, and every single person in the room was staring at Kathleen. Marmon Doolin pushed through the crowd, his face flushed with anger. What in the name of the moon was that? An attack, Wyatt said calmly. They were after her. Doolin pointed at Kathleen. They called her by name. They knew exactly who they were looking for. They called her by someone else's name, Wyatt corrected. They're mistaken. Mistaken? Isaac Finch joined them, his expression tight with fear. They came into our hall, during the assembly, targeting a member of our pack. We have a right to know why. You have a right to protect your people. Wyatt's gaze swept over the council members. Which you failed to do. Rufus Voss stepped forward, his alpha authority finally asserting itself. Alpha King, we appreciate your intervention, but this is a pack matter. Kathleen Mills is one of ours, and will handle whatever danger she's brought to our door. She didn't bring danger, Wyatt said. Danger found her. There's a difference. Then what is she? Doolin demanded. Why would rogues attack during the Lunar Assembly just to reach one unremarkable girl? The words hit Kathleen like a physical blow. Unremarkable. That was how they saw her. How they'd always seen her. She's not unremarkable, Wyatt said quietly. Everyone turned to stare at him. She's dangerous, Wyatt continued. To the right people. To wolves who profit from keeping old magic suppressed. To rogues who serve masters that want her silenced before she understands what she is. What she is? Leah pushed forward, her voice shaking. What are you talking about? Kathleen can't even shift. She doesn't need to shift to be powerful. Silence fell over the hall. Kathleen felt like the floor had disappeared beneath her feet. Everyone was looking at her, fear, suspicion, confusion written across their faces. These were wolves she'd lived among her entire life. Wolves who'd pitied her, ignored her, dismissed her. Now they were afraid of her. I don't understand, Kathleen whispered. Wyatt turned to face her fully. His expression was unreadable, but the bond between them burned bright and undeniable. I'll explain, he said, but not here. Rufus Voss stepped forward. You're not taking her anywhere, Alpha King. She's under our protection. Your protection failed the moment rogues breached your hall. Wyatt's voice was steel wrapped in silk. I'm claiming responsibility for her safety. If you have a problem with that, we can discuss it after I've made sure she's not going to be killed in the next 24 hours. You can't just... I can. Wyatt's eyes flashed gold. And I am. He looked at Kathleen. Do you trust me? It was an absurd question. She didn't know him. Didn't understand what was happening. Didn't know why the bond burned so hot between them, or why rogues were hunting her, or what any of this meant. But when she looked into his eyes, her wolf settled. Safe, it whispered. Yes, Kathleen heard herself say. Wyatt nodded once. Then he turned to the council. We'll be in touch. He took Kathleen's hand, and they walked out of the hall together. Behind them, chaos erupted in whispers and accusations. Ahead of them, the forbidden forest waited in silence. Kathleen ran. Not from the settlement. Not from the hall. From Wyatt. The moment they cleared the building, the moment the forest came into view, something inside her broke. She yanked her hand free from his and bolted toward the trees. Kathleen? She didn't stop. Couldn't stop. Her dress caught on branches and she tore it free. Her careful braid came undone and hair whipped across her face. She ran until her lungs burned and her legs shook, and then she ran further. The forest swallowed her whole. She made it back to the clearing, the same one she'd slept in the night before, and collapsed to her knees in the center of it. Wyatt appeared at the edge of the tree line seconds later. He didn't chase her, didn't grab her. Just stood there, watching, giving her space even though the bond between them screamed for closeness. Leave me alone, Kathleen gasped. No. You don't understand. I can't. I'm not. Her voice broke. I'm nothing. I'm broken. Whatever you think I am, you're wrong. Wyatt walked forward slowly, like he was approaching a wounded animal. He stopped a few feet away and crouched down so they were eye level. You're not broken. I can't shift. You don't need to. Everyone keeps saying that. Kathleen's hands curled into fists against the ground. But no one will tell me what it means. What am I supposed to be? What do those rogues want? Why did they call me someone else's daughter? Because you are. The words landed like stones. Kathleen stared at him. What? Moira. Wyatt's expression was careful, controlled. She was a witch, a powerful one. She lived in these woods 200 years ago, before the packs formed, when magic and wolves coexisted differently. The stories say she could speak to the forest, control it, shape it to her will. I'm not a witch. You're her descendant. Wyatt held her gaze. Old magic runs in your bloodline. The kind that doesn't announce itself with shifting or pack bonds. It sleeps, waits, awakens when the time is right. Kathleen shook her head. That's impossible. Is it? Wyatt gestured to the clearing around them. This forest welcomed you, protected you, responded to your presence. Animals don't fear you. Plants grow stronger where you walk. The bond between us formed the moment I saw you. And I'm an alpha king who's supposed to be immune to uncontrolled mate pulls. The bond? Kathleen's breath caught. You felt it too. Weeks ago. Why didn't you say anything? Because you were already drowning. Wyatt's voice was gentle. Adding the weight of a mate bond you didn't choose would have broken you. I wanted you to have space. Time. A chance to breathe before the world demanded more from you. So you just watched me? Yes. For how long? 3 nights in the forest. Longer before that, from a distance. Wyatt didn't flinch from the truth. I killed the rogues who came for you. I stood guard while you slept. I made sure you were safe even when you didn't know danger was close. Kathleen's hands were shaking. You should have let them take me. Never. You don't understand. She stood abruptly, pacing away from him. If I'm what you say I am, if I'm carrying some kind of ancient magic, then I'm dangerous. To you, to my pack, to everyone. Better to end it now before people get hurt. People are already hurt, Wyatt said quietly. You've been hurting your whole life, carrying shame that was never yours to bear. That's not the same, isn't it? A sound cut through their argument. Movement in the trees, multiple bodies, coordinated and fast. Wyatt was on his feet instantly, placing himself between Kathleen and the approaching threat. His eyes flashed gold as his wolf surged forward. The rogues emerged from the forest in a wave. More than before. Dozens of them. They circled the clearing with practiced precision, cutting off every escape route. The lead rogue from the hall stepped forward. He was older than the others, scarred and dangerous, with eyes that held too much knowledge. "Last chance, Alpha King," he said. "Walk away. This doesn't concern you." "Everything concerning her concerns me." The rogue smiled. It wasn't pleasant. "Then you'll die with her." They attacked as one. Wyatt shifted mid-leap, his wolf massive and dark and utterly lethal. He tore into the rogues with controlled violence, but there were too many. For everyone he brought down, 2 more took its place. Kathleen watched him fight, watched him bleed, watched him put himself between her and death over and over again. This was her fault. He was going to die because of her. A rogue broke through Wyatt's defense. The creature lunged for Kathleen with jaws wide. She scrambled backward, tripped over a root, fell hard. The rogue landed on top of her, teeth inches from her throat. Wyatt roared. The sound was primal, agonized, the cry of a mate watching his bond partner die. Kathleen felt something crack open inside her chest. Power flooded through her veins like lightning. The forest responded. Roots erupted from the ground, wrapping around the rogue on top of her, yanking it away with brutal force. The earth itself seemed to rise in her defense. The attacking wolves froze. Kathleen pushed herself upright, gasping. Her hands were glowing with soft green light. Around her, the forest pulsed with energy, alive, aware, answering her call. Wyatt shifted back to human form, blood streaming from a dozen wounds. He was staring at her with something between awe and fear. "Kathleen, I can't control it." Her voice shook. The power was building, growing, threatening to consume everything. "Wyatt, I can't." More rogues charged. The forest defended her. Branches became weapons. Vines became chains. The earth opened and swallowed attackers whole. Kathleen stood in the center of it, terrified of her own strength. This was what she'd feared her whole life. Not weakness. This, being too much, too dangerous, too other, a monster. "End it," she whispered. Wyatt was at her side in an instant, his hands on her face, forcing her to meet his eyes. "What?" "Kill me." Tears streamed down Kathleen's cheeks. "Before I hurt someone, before I become something worse. Please, Wyatt, I'm begging you. End it." "No. I don't want to be a weapon." "You're not a weapon." Wyatt's grip tightened. "You're powerful. There's a difference." "I can't control it." "Then I'll help you learn." "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly." Wyatt's voice was fierce. "You've spent your entire life being told you're not enough. And now, the moment you discover you're more than anyone imagined, you're so terrified of taking up space that you'd rather die than claim it." The words hit like a physical blow. Kathleen's knees buckled. Wyatt caught her, pulling her against his chest, and the bond between them flared bright and true. "I've got you," he murmured. "You're not alone. You've never been alone." Around them, the forest was still defending, still attacking, still answering Kathleen's unconscious call for protection. She pressed her face against Wyatt's shoulder and let herself break. And as she did, something inside her shifted. Her wolf, silent for 23 years, finally answered. The shift was nothing like Kathleen imagined. No pain, no tearing, no violence. Her wolf simply emerged, as natural as breathing, as inevitable as dawn. One moment she was human, collapsed in Wyatt's arms. The next, she was standing on 4 legs, her senses exploding with clarity she'd never experienced before. The bond sang between them, fully formed, completely mutual. Mate. Wyatt's wolf responded immediately, a deep rumble of recognition and approval. He shifted beside her, his dark wolf massive and protective, and together they stood in the center of the clearing. The forest responded to Kathleen's new form. Trees bent toward her. Flowers bloomed out of season. The very air seemed to shimmer with old magic recognizing its heir. Kathleen's wolf was smaller than Wyatt's, sleek and silver with markings that glowed faintly in the moonlight. Not the typical coloring of a pack wolf. Something older. Something that belonged to the forest itself. The rogues, still standing, backed away. Their leader stared at Kathleen with naked fear. Impossible. Kathleen didn't speak. Didn't need to. The forest spoke for her. Vines tightened around fallen rogues. Roots created barriers. The message was clear. Leave, or the forest would make sure they never left at all. The surviving attackers fled. Silence settled over the clearing like snow. Kathleen shifted back to human form, the transition smooth and effortless. She stood naked in the moonlight, her skin still glowing faintly with residual magic, and looked down at her hands in wonder. Wyatt shifted beside her, equally bare, equally unbothered. He was watching her with an expression she couldn't quite name. I shifted, Kathleen whispered. You did. I felt my wolf. For the first time in my life, I actually felt her. She was always there. Wyatt stepped closer. Just waiting for you to be ready. Kathleen looked up at him. Really looked at him. The Alpha King who'd watched her from the shadows, who'd killed for her, bled for her, stood between her and death without hesitation. The mate bond between them burned bright and undeniable. Why didn't you tell me? Her voice was soft. About the bond, about what I was. Would you have believed me? No? Then that's why. Wyatt reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he cupped her face with gentle hands. You needed to discover your own strength. Claim your own power. If I'd told you what you were, you would have spent your life wondering if it was real or just something I'd convinced you of. You could have died tonight. I was willing to risk it. For someone you barely know? For my mate. Wyatt's thumb brushed across her cheekbone. For the woman my wolf recognized the moment I saw her. For the person I've been waiting my entire life to protect. Tears pricked Kathleen's eyes. I'm not worth that. Yes, Wyatt said firmly. You are. The forest hummed around them, ancient and approving. Kathleen pressed her hand to Wyatt's chest, feeling his heartbeat strong and steady beneath her palm. The bond pulled tight, demanding closer contact, deeper connection. What happens now? She asked. Whatever you choose. The council will want answers. The pack will have questions. Those rogues will come back with reinforcements. Probably. And the mate bond... Kathleen's breath caught. Everyone will know. They'll see it. They'll talk. They will. I've spent my whole life trying to be invisible. I know. Kathleen looked up into Wyatt's eyes. Gold and fierce and utterly certain. I don't know how to be anything else, she admitted. Then learn. Wyatt's voice was gentle. With me. At your own pace. In your own time. But Kathleen... He leaned down until their foreheads touched. Don't spend the rest of your life making yourself small, because other people are afraid of your size. The words settled into her bones like truth. Around them, the forbidden forest whispered approval. Kathleen's wolf stirred, content and certain in a way she'd never been before. She thought about the girl who'd run into these woods 2 nights ago, convinced she was broken. The girl who'd begged for death rather than becoming a monster. The girl who'd believed shame was the only thing she deserved. That girl was gone. In her place stood someone new. Someone powerful. Someone who'd finally stopped apologizing for existing. Kathleen rose onto her toes and kissed Wyatt. The bond flared between them, bright and binding. He made a sound low in his throat and pulled her closer. His hands sliding into her hair, his mouth gentle despite the obvious restraint it took. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Wyatt rested his forehead against hers. "Stay with me tonight," he murmured. "In the forest. Let the pack wander. Let the council scramble. Just stay." Kathleen smiled. It felt strange on her face. Foreign. Good. Okay. They didn't go far. Just deeper into the forest, to a place where the trees grew so thick the moonlight barely penetrated. Wyatt built a fire with practiced ease, and they sat together in comfortable silence. Kathleen watched the flames dance. Her wolf was quiet now, satisfied, no longer restless or yearning for something she couldn't name. "Can I ask you something?" she said eventually. "Anything?" "Why were you at the border negotiation, the one where we first met?" "Your pack doesn't usually participate in regional politics." Wyatt was quiet for a moment. "I was looking for you." Kathleen turned to stare at him. "What?" 3 months ago, I started having dreams." He fed another branch to the fire. "Not normal dreams. Visions, maybe. They showed me a woman in danger, a wolf who couldn't shift, old magic waking up in dangerous times. I didn't understand what they meant, but my wolf wouldn't let it go. So you came looking." "I attended every regional gathering I could justify, visited packs on diplomatic missions, made myself visible in places I normally avoid. And then, at that border negotiation, I walked into a room and saw you serving drinks. I spilled water on Isaac Finch. You apologized 6 times for something that wasn't your fault." Wyatt's voice was soft. "And the bond snapped into place so hard I nearly shifted in the middle of a diplomatic meeting." Kathleen stared at the fire, processing this. "You've known for 3 months." "Yes. And you just watched. Waited." "I protected." Wyatt met her eyes. "There's a difference. The rogues, they've been hunting me this whole time. They've been searching. I made sure they didn't find you until tonight, when I could control the circumstances." "You planned the assembly attack?" "I knew they'd make their move there. Too many wolves, too much chaos. Perfect cover." Wyatt's jaw tightened. "I made sure I was there to stop it." Kathleen shook her head slowly. "You're insane. I'm committed. You could have died. So could you, and that wasn't an option I was willing to consider." The bond pulsed between them, warm and certain. Kathleen leaned against Wyatt's shoulder. He wrapped an arm around her, pulling her close, and they sat together watching the fire burn down to embers. Tomorrow, there would be questions, consequences, decisions about what came next. But tonight, in the heart of the forbidden forest, with her wolf finally awake and her mate finally real, Kathleen let herself simply exist. Whole, powerful, chosen. Dawn found them still awake. Kathleen lay curled against Wyatt's chest, listening to his heartbeat, feeling the steady rise and fall of his breathing. The mate bond between them hummed contentedly, satisfied in a way that made her wolf purr. She'd never imagined this, never let herself hope for it. "We should go back," she said quietly. Wyatt's hand stilled where it had been tracing lazy patterns on her shoulder. "We don't have to." "Yes, we do." Kathleen sat up, wrapping the cloak Wyatt had given her more tightly around herself. "The pack deserves answers. My sister is probably worried sick, and those rogues will come back with more numbers if we don't deal with whatever's driving them." "You sound like an alpha." "I sound like someone who's tired of running." Wyatt studied her face. "What changed?" "Everything." Kathleen met his eyes. "I spent my whole life believing I was broken. that something fundamental was wrong with me. But I wasn't broken. I was just different. And the people around me were so afraid of different that they convinced me fear was the same as truth. And now? Now I know better. She stood, extending her hand to him. Come on, let's go face the music. They walked back to the settlement together as the sun climbed higher. Kathleen's dress was ruined, her hair a mess, and she was fairly certain every wolf with working eyes would know exactly what she and Wyatt had been doing in the forest all night. She found she didn't care. The bond mark had appeared on her collarbone while they slept. A silver crescent moon intertwined with a wolf's paw. Wyatt had a matching one. There would be no hiding what they were to each other now. Good. Leah met them at the settlement entrance. Her sister looked like she hadn't slept, her face pale and drawn, but relief flooded her features the moment she saw Kathleen. Thank the moon. Leah rushed forward, then stopped short when she noticed the bond mark. Her eyes widened. Kathleen? I know. The Alpha King? I know. He's... I know. Kathleen pulled her sister into a hug. I'm sorry I scared you. Leah hugged her back fiercely. Don't ever do that again. I can't promise that. I know. Leah pulled back, her eyes searching Kathleen's face. You look different. I am different. Your wolf? I shifted. Last night. In the forest. Tears filled Leah's eyes. Kathleen, I'm so happy for you. Don't cry. I'm crying because I'm happy. Leah wiped at her face. And because the council is absolutely losing their minds. They've been in emergency session since last night. Rufus wants to speak with you. So does Isaac Finch. And Marmon Doolin is making noise about pack security and uncontrolled threats. Let them make noise. Wyatt's voice was calm. Kathleen doesn't answer to them anymore. Leah looked at him properly for the first time. Whatever she saw in his expression made her nod slowly. I'll tell them you're coming to the hall, she said. But Kathleen? Be ready. They're afraid. And scared wolves do stupid things. The great hall had been cleaned since the attack. Furniture repaired. Blood scrubbed from the floors. But the energy inside was still tense, still sharp with unresolved fear. The council sat in a semicircle on the dais. Rufus Voss in the center, flanked by Marmon Doolin, Isaac Finch, Harlan Cross, and Clara McGraw. They all stood when Kathleen and Wyatt entered. Other pack members filled the benches. Kathleen recognized faces from her childhood, wolves who'd watched her grow up, who'd pitied her, who'd never quite known what to do with the girl who couldn't shift. They were all staring at the bond mark on her collarbone. Kathleen Mills. Rufus's voice carried across the hall. Thank you for coming. Did I have a choice? A muscle jumped in Rufus's jaw. We have questions. I'm sure you do. The rogues who attacked last night, they were looking for you specifically. They called you by another name. We need to understand why. Kathleen glanced at Wyatt. He nodded slightly, giving her permission to handle this herself. She turned back to the council. My mother's bloodline carries old magic, the kind that predates pack structure. I'm a descendant of Moira, the forest witch. That's why the rogues want me. Someone is afraid of what I might become. Silence. Then Marmon Doolin stood. That's exactly why you shouldn't stay here. You're a threat to pack stability. I'm a member of this pack. You're dangerous. So is every wolf in this room. Kathleen's voice was steady. The difference is, I'm being honest about it. Isaac Finch cleared his throat. The mate bond. The Alpha King. When did this happen? Last night. Convenient timing. Not particularly. Kathleen met his eyes. But it's real, and it's permanent. So you can either accept it or waste time trying to deny what every wolf in this room can already see. Clara McGraw leaned forward. What are your intentions, Kathleen? Will you be leaving the pack to join the Alpha King's territory? The question hung in the air. Kathleen hadn't actually thought about it. Hadn't made plans beyond surviving the next conversation. She looked at Wyatt. He was watching her with calm patience, clearly willing to support whatever decision she made. I don't know, Kathleen admitted, but I do know this. I'm not going to keep making myself small so other people feel comfortable. I'm not going to apologize for existing, and I'm not going to let anyone, council, pack, or otherwise, tell me I'm too dangerous to deserve dignity. Rufus stood. No one is suggesting. You've been suggesting it my entire life. Kathleen's voice was quiet but firm. Not with words, with silence, with pity, with the constant message that I was a problem you didn't know how to solve. Well, I'm not a problem. I'm a person. And I'm done acting grateful for scraps of belonging. The hall was dead silent. Wyatt stepped forward, his presence commanding immediate attention. Kathleen has my full support, as her mate, as an alpha, as someone who recognizes her value even when others can't. If she chooses to stay with this pack, I'll respect that decision. If she chooses to leave, I'll welcome her into my territory with the honor she deserves. And if we don't accept this, Marmon demanded, then you're fools. Wyatt's voice was cold. But that's not my problem. It's yours. Rufus held up a hand. This is getting nowhere. Kathleen, we're not trying to drive you away. But you have to understand, the pack's safety is my responsibility. If rogues are targeting you specifically, then keeping you here puts everyone at risk. The rogues will keep coming whether I'm here or not, Kathleen said. The question is whether you want me defending this pack when they do, or whether you want to face them without someone who can actually control the forest they hide in. Clara's eyebrows rose. You can control the forest? I'm learning. Could you protect the settlement? If I wanted to. Would you want to? Kathleen looked around the hall. At wolves she'd grown up with. People she'd known her whole life. Some met her eyes with fear. Others with curiosity. A few, like Leah, standing near the back, with pride. I don't know, Kathleen said honestly. You've spent 23 years making me feel like I didn't belong here. Like I was a burden you tolerated out of obligation. Why would I risk my life to protect people who never protected me? The words landed like stones. Rufus flinched. That's not fair. It's completely fair. Leah's voice rang out from the back. She pushed through the crowd to stand beside her sister. You all saw what happened to Kathleen growing up. The whispers, the pity, the complete failure to help her understand why she couldn't shift. And not one of you stepped up. Not one of you defended her when the council discussed sending her away. Leah? Rufus started. No. Leah's voice shook with anger. My sister deserves better than this. She always has. And now that she's finally powerful enough to demand it, you're all acting shocked that she might not want to stay. Kathleen reached for her sister's hand, squeezed it gently. Thank you, she whispered. Leah squeezed back. Wyatt stepped closer to Kathleen. The bond between them pulsed with warmth and certainty. What do you want? He asked quietly. Kathleen looked around the hall one more time, at the pack that had raised her, the people who'd shaped her understanding of worth and belonging. And she realized something fundamental. She didn't need their permission anymore. I want time, she said, to learn what I am, to understand my magic, to figure out who I'm supposed to become now that I'm not spending every moment trying to be invisible. You can have that, Wyatt said. I want the freedom to make my own choices. Not because the council approves, Not because the pack demands it, but because I've finally earned the right to decide my own fate. You always had that right. I want... Kathleen's voice caught. She looked at Wyatt, at the mate who'd protected her when she couldn't protect herself, who'd waited for her to be ready instead of forcing a connection she wasn't prepared for. I want to be with you, she finished quietly. Wherever that leads. Wyatt's expression softened. He cupped her face with both hands, gentle despite his obvious strength. Then come home with me, he said. Not as an obligation, not as something you owe me because of the bond, but as a choice. Your choice. Kathleen felt something inside her settle, like a puzzle piece finally clicking into place. Yes. The word was simple, certain, free. Wyatt kissed her forehead, and the bond sang between them. Around them, the pack erupted in whispers. But Kathleen didn't care about the noise anymore. She'd spent too many years letting other people's opinions shape her reality. Rufus cleared his throat. If you're leaving the pack, there are formalities. I'm not leaving the pack, Kathleen interrupted. I'm joining another one. There's a difference. The process is the same. Then make it quick. Kathleen held the alpha's gaze. I'm done living in limbo. The formalities took less than an hour. Papers signed. Bonds severed. A formal announcement that Kathleen Mills was no longer a member of the Voss pack. Leah cried through the whole thing. I'm not disappearing, Kathleen told her sister. You can visit. I'll visit. We're still family. I know. Leah wiped at her eyes. I'm just going to miss you. I'll miss you too. They hugged for a long time, and when they finally pulled apart, Leah was smiling through her tears. Be happy, she whispered. You deserve it. I will. Wyatt was waiting at the settlement entrance. He'd changed into travel clothes and had a pack slung over his shoulder. When Kathleen approached, he held out his hand. She took it without hesitation. They walked away from the settlement together as the sun climbed toward noon. Behind them, wolves watched in silence. Ahead, the forbidden forest waited like a doorway to a new life. Your territory is far, Kathleen said. 3 days' journey on foot. Will we run? If you want to. Wyatt glanced at her. Your wolf is new. We can take our time. I want to run. They shifted together at the forest edge. Kathleen's silver wolf and Wyatt's dark one, moving through the trees like they'd been running together their whole lives. The mate bond guided them north, toward mountains and territory Kathleen had only heard about in stories. Toward a pack that didn't know her yet. Toward a future she was finally free to choose. As they ran, Kathleen's wolf sang with joy. She wasn't broken. She never had been. She was exactly what she was supposed to be. Powerful, dangerous, and finally free. Behind them, the forbidden forest whispered approval. Ahead, the Alpha King's territory waited to welcome its new Luna home. And Kathleen Mills, descendant of Moira, bearer of old magic, mate to the most powerful wolf in the region, ran toward her destiny with her head held high and her heart wide open. She had not become powerful because she was chosen. She was chosen because she refused to believe she was broken. And that made all the difference.